Welcome back this week in Missouri Politics Overtime. I says where we take our ties off and get comfortable. I want to pick up what you said. You were saying something about ethics, and ethics everywhere, but no ethics to spare. I remember a story I heard long, long ago of a Richardson from Butler County set to become Speaker before Todd. It was his father. He was elected, had the votes in the Missouri legislature to become Speaker. However, Becky Cook held the board open, would not close the board for days, left it open all night. Ended up buying off blatant graft with license fee offices, a Republican from South County. John Combest and Jason Rosenbaum remember the Montreal screw job a few years later. Before that, it was the South County screw job. I don't remember the Post-Dispatch decrying ethics, and there was everything that people talk about ethics reform today. None of that existed then. It was far, if you consider that, less ethical, and they blatantly used your tax dollars to buy off a vote. I don't remember the outcry from the liberal editorial writers.
Well, I can't speak for the liberal editorial writers at the time. I can speak for myself at this time, and I think that, again, it's very clear. Missourians have repeatedly said, we want ethics reform, we want lobbyist gift reform, we want campaign contribution reform. And, you know, last time we talked about this, we were talking about the year of $1 million donations. Now we're looking at $2 million single contributions to single candidates. That's just an outrage, and we don't even know who it's from. So it's gotten even worse in the past 6 months.
Look, I guess I don't know that Mark Dalton would take weight loss advice very seriously from me. I also don't know that you would take ethics advice but it took a $2 million anonymous contribution, right? I mean, similar concept. Robert, we're from the same neck of the woods down in southeast Missouri. We both heard this story before. I don't know if maybe that the liberal editorial boards picked up ethics when they started passing conservative laws.
Yeah, they seem to.
What a coincidence.
They seem to find religion at an opportune time. But good Baptists will tell you that we'll take converts at any time, any day or time. But I think you look at ethics issues. I think they're certainly if the representative is correct and and voters really are serious about making some meaningful reforms, I think they should take a hard look at what the Speaker of the House has proposed, that the House has passed good legislation, and they should take a look at what Eric Greitens is proposing as a candidate for governor.
And would you say that next year, if Gail McCain Beatty has the votes to become Speaker, they shouldn't corruptly buy off a member? They should have her become Speaker?
I think they should close the board.
Yeah. Mark Dalton, let's talk about the mess in the 78.
Sure.
Penny Hubbard's re-election with Bruce Franks. I guess I did not see something all that egregious to overturn the election. It was a surprise. They don't have revotes that often.
Right.
It was a bit of a surprise to me. I think that the real loser here may be the Democrat Party. I think whoever wins is going to have a very similar voting record. But it seems to me like if you start depressing urban absentee voting, what you're really going to hurt is Democratic candidates.
Yeah, I think that's. I agree. I didn't see anything that just was an outcry for a re-election. But yeah, I think it probably the outcome will be disenfranchising some voters that likely would have voted, but are now turned off. Yes.
I think it may be Jeff Abusi. It may be an interesting scenario where some folks are like, I don't want any trouble, so I just won't vote.
Well, I think the long-term effect is that depending on the outcome of this case, it could create a scenario in a multitude of upcoming elections where people begin to cry foul, go back to the courts to try to obtain a different result from which the voters have just rendered. So I think there could be some ramifications to this effect.
Representative, I believe that it's oddly timed. This issue, voter ID, will be an issue talked about this week in Jefferson City. If I'm a Republican, I'm like, see, there's problems, even they know it.
Well, first and foremost, the trial court found very specifically that there was no fraud perpetrated by either of the candidates, that this was a problem of the elections board. Second of all, what was going on in this election has absolutely nothing to do with the photo ID bill. None of the purported irregularities, according to the trial court or according to anybody that's looked at these ballots, has anything to do with voter impersonation fraud. That's not what's going on here. It'll be very interesting to see what the Court of Appeals does with this case next week. It's scheduled for a hearing in the Court of Appeals on Monday. I think that I got to agree with Mark in that This is a really drastic remedy to a problem that was, according to the trial court, who looks at all the evidence, was perpetrated specifically by the voter, the elections board. And we're going to have problems, again, as Jeff stated, across the state with absentee voting. And the fact, honestly, the fact that these ballots were released publicly is really what I think we should be talking about.
Man.
Because that, to me, legally, they could have done an in-camera review, they could have appointed a special master. There are other ways to have the court look at the evidence without having it be released publicly. And if I was an absentee voter in the city of St. Louis, I would be outraged.
Robert Odell, I mean, I've worked on campaigns before. This was absentee voting programs. There's nothing wrong with that. There's very good reasons people vote absentee. This may put a chilling effect on that.
Yeah, it's the key when it comes to free and fair elections, which for everything that Republicans and Democrats disagree on, we can agree that the United States has one of the best systems of elections in the world. The confidence and the trust of voters in the integrity of our elections is paramount. And if they believe that absentee ballots are compromised, or that their identity and who they vote for is going to be revealed, or if they believe that people are fraudulently voting and diluting the power of an individual's vote, then there is a crisis of confidence amongst the voters, and the crisis begins to erode the rock our system is built on. So we have to look to be proactive and to take steps to restore that confidence, to ensure that confidence, and make sure that it's absolute. And there will likely be legislative remedies, including the override on photo ID that'll be considered next week.
Let me real quickly. We had a poll that Missouri Times did in the 1st District. It showed Scott Sifton up by not a comfortable margin, but up. And then there was also a poll done in the 19th District to replace Senator Schaefer. Representative Stephen Weber held a 4-point lead over Caleb Browden. You look at these polls all the time. Tell me, is that where these races end up?
Again, until you see a candidate's well north of 50%, anything can happen in a race. And and I don't think either of those races, to my eye, neither candidate has pulled away. They're going to be toss-up races. They're going to be very close. And I think you probably have to look at both of them ultimately being a jump ball.
Which one's going to be closer, Mark Dalton, at the end of the day? Will Sifton's race be closer, or will the 19th?
I think the 19th will be a little bit closer, but I think the way the polls are now is pretty close to how it'll work out.
Jeff Abusi, which one's going to be closer, Sifton's race or the 19th?
I think if you have to look at both of those races. Both Democratic candidates are working extremely hard. I don't see the polling numbers changing much. I think the outcome are going to render the polls that we see today. I think Stephen Weber is working tirelessly in his county. I think you've definitely seen the dynamics change a little bit in Boone County, probably slants a little bit more to the Democrat, but I think Stephen is a great candidate, and the incumbent, Scott Sifton, I think he's running the race, knocking on doors the way races are supposed to be run. So I think the outcome is going to be exactly the way we see it today.
Got a different question for you, Representative. You're heavily involved in the Democrats' effort in the House on the campaign trail. Do you pick up seats, and how many?
I think we pick up seats. It remains to be seen. I think we've got some really, really good opportunities out there, and I think that we got candidates that are capitalizing on them in a really good way.
Lastly, Jeff Abusi, where were you at on 9/11?
I was at Weldon Springs as the job steward for the operating engineers on that hazardous waste cleanup. I can picture it today. I was driving around the north end of the cell when it came over the radio, and we thought we heard something that was wrong, and then we heard it again, drove to the offices to get in front of a TV monitor only to see the Twin Towers engulfed in flames.
Representative, where were you on 9/11?
I was at home frantically trying to reach my father, who was at a meeting down on Wall Street that day.
Oh, wow. Robert, where were you at on 9/11?
Traveling on Interstate 55 to a meeting in Jefferson County, and heard the first reports on the radio, on a country radio station, and then we turned it over to News Talk to get more details and learn of the tragedy.
Where were you at 9/11, Mark?
We were in New Melly, framing a house and listening to Howard Stern on the radio give the play-by-play. He was right there.
Baba Booey. Lastly, I remember I was at Southeast Missouri State University for a ball game. Steve Marcus, appreciate the Trump Busters button. I will be proudly presenting this to Jane Duker at KMOX on Friday. I want to thank you for that. I want to thank everybody for watching. We'll see you next week. Thank you for watching the Overtime on This Week in Missouri Politics.